So Wednesday, Jerry Hutch celebrated his 60th birthday.
Yeah.
And on Monday, we expect, anyway, that he'll find out his fate.
Yes, and it'd be a huge difference between how he spends his 70th and possibly even 80th birthdays, depending on the verdict, because if you're getting a life sentence at the age of 60, it really could amount to, the rest of your life in prison. If Jerry walks free, it's, he gets to go back to the life he was living, which sounds like an ideal life in a way, moving between Dublin and Lanzarote, having no particular financial concerns, property and in Spain and in Ireland. So huge, the stakes are huge for him.
Stakes are huge. And, doesn't that age focuses on how significant it is that he has found himself in this position.
Yeah.
Somebody who has been around for so long, all the way back to that grouping they called the Bugsy Malones, the young lads who vaulted counters and grabbed money and ran like hell. Kids who were hungry, who were from a very poor part of town, who had no, they certainly didn't have, or feel they had options. Back then they didn't actually have options.
No, definitely not.
And they kind of made life work for themselves through, he has obviously not got a criminal conviction since the 1980s. He is suspected of being behind two major heists that are suspected of making him a lot of money. And he has paid a cab bill for the non-compliance with tax. But he's a very senior figure in the Hutch organisation. We heard during evidence in his trial that organisation they described it as an intergenerational familial grouping with bonds and close associations where people worked together sometimes and worked with others. But ultimately it was a family organisation. Now the state has said during the case that Hutch sat on top of that, and also that he was, let me just get the exact phrase. Yes, that he was the man in charge that day at the Regency. That's what the state has said.
Yeah, I mean, the state have made very strong claims actually about what Gerard Hutch did that day, including that he was one of the TAC team, as they're calling it, the three men dressed in Garda uniforms who burst into the Regency Hotel and ultimately shot David Byrne. So they've made a clear claim that Jerry Hutch was one of them, which we didn't really hear until towards the end of the trial. So that's what is being said about Jerry Hutch. He came, as you said, I mean, if you think about there is a famous interview, isn't there, with is it Joe Duffy or one of those people on radio where Jerry Hutch as a teenager is speaking about being involved in joyriding and various crimes like that.
He talks about actually when he sees a handbag, he can't help himself but take it.
So
he talks about that he just can't help himself and he wants it.
I mean, so you're talking 45 years ago then, an unrecognisable Dublin, certainly inner city Dublin, run down, empty properties, a lot of poverty, a lot of people living on top of each other. The remnants of the old tenements in Dublin still existed to a degree at that point. If you go where we are, of course, we're in that part of the city now. You walk around, there's shiny, the IFSC, all of these things that didn't exist at that point, the
shiny developments that I suppose people would say didn't create the employment for the locals that they promised.
Exactly.
When they were being built, and that development, that IFSC went up all around the North Inner City and sort of totally surrounded it with wealth, with opulence, with opportunities for the educated and left behind the people,
and even pushed out that community as pushed that community out of the inner city, a community that existed for generations upon generations. So that's where Jerry is coming from. It's where he goes now. I mean, everywhere you go, people are asking a simple question, really, isn't it? will he get off or
Simple
not?
question. I've been dodging that. I have been literally like, for the last. When were we in court last? Sorry, just the last few months have gone. Was it the end of January, beginning of February?
Yeah, beginning of February, I think.
Was it beginning of February that it came? And then we were told at that time, Justice Tara Burns, Sarah Berkeley and Gráinne Malone, who've been sitting over the trial. And of course, the trial, by the way, got underway in October of last year. But they said at that point that they would be back with their verdict by April 17th, if not before it. We've heard nothing from them. Yeah. So we are expecting that verdict, unless for whatever unforeseen circumstances that is kicked on. I don't think it will be.
No, it'd be hard to believe that it would be. So yeah, that's what people, they
But what have you answered? Sorry, just...
Well, are we allowed to speculate?
I think we probably are at this stage. I don't think we're going to influence anybody. I don't think we ever are going to influence
I can't even influence my children to go to bed, let alone the esteemed judges. I think that, so I think there's a few things to bear in mind, right? Like we've had two really high profile appeals in recent times of murder convictions, arguably two of the most high-profile murder convictions of the last decade. The Mr. Moonlight case with Patrick Quirke and Graham Dwyer, which there's been an appeal regarding phone data.
For his conviction for the murder of Elaine O'Hara.
Right? And in both of those cases are very different than the Regency in many, many ways. Mm-hmm. But in one way, they are both built on circumstantial evidence, where a case is put through, there is no DNA evidence, there's no
smoking gun.
So what in both of those cases you've seen the state have built a circumstantial case using various threads of evidence to piece together a case, and they have now withstood serious appeals, and they've even withstood in the Patrick Quirke case the appeal has withstood evidence to do with a warrant not being done properly, not being done lawfully. The Graham Dwyer has withstood a complaint regarding phone data. So the Gerry Hutch case is equivalent or similar in that have the state pieced it together enough. They've certainly got some circumstantial evidence. In particular, they have evidence of Gerry Hutch speaking himself on the recorded devices on a bugged conversations with Jonathan Dowdall. Absolutely, that is circumstantial evidence. He's discussing bits to do with the Regency. He appears to have knowledge of weapons. He has some. There is evidence of his knowledge of maybe the Hutch-Kinahan feud, and they have evidence of Jonathan Dowdall. What else do they have? They have other various bits of circumstantial. Does it all add up to enough? Personally, I don't really think it does. That would be my, and I think partly you can.
Funny you talk about the comparisons, and when you look at the case of Freddie Thompson, who was found guilty for the murder of David
Douglas.
Douglas, that was circumstantial evidence pieced together, and they built the case as they watched, but they had him in the city, and they had him near the scene of the crime,
They had him smashing a mobile phone in the aftermath.
They did.
They had some DNA evidence of him in a car with what was.
And I can recall before that verdict came in, there was a lot of it did seem like extraordinary to have him in the dock, to actually have him facing charges of murder. This criminal who had, really, really been so violent and had sort of,
been a dominant figure for 20 years in
bullied his way
crime.
through the underworld and through feuds, firstly the Crumlin Drimnagh feud, and he just seemed to feel untouchable and to be that way. So there was that sense, I think, from the guards that, they were afraid to say they had him because, things had always gone his way or whatever. Yeah. But I sat there through that case because I listened to it, I covered it, and I was very confident he was going to be found guilty. I would say in this regard, I'm not very confident that Hutch is going to be found guilty. But I have said to anybody who's asked me, it's 50-50, which is a real cop-out. I'm sitting on the fence. And the reasons for that is obviously, A, the most obvious reason is he's before the Special Criminal Court. And, you've no jury there, so you're not it is literally the pieces of evidence that are going to be analysed, are going to have been analysed by those judges. On a statistical basis, there's a huge percentage of people that get convicted in those courts. And also there are, if you really look in detail, there are little bits that may have been missed in the the chatter of ourselves as well, that will sort of steer towards what's been said. Little pieces.
I think that's fair. I think there's sort of CCTV evidence of movements of cars and stuff to do with Buckingham Village. There's various bits like that. There's
some bits off, and then there's some bits. I mean, I was even looking there. Obviously, one of the key pieces of evidence that the judges will be considering is that of Sarah Sked. And she is an intelligence analyst working with the Gardaí. I think she gave a lot of evidence during the Graham Dwyer trial. And her evidence was looking at the phone traffic, right, of to see where Dowdall was and where Hutch was. Because, of course, Dowdall said that he met Hutch in a park in Whitehall.
Yeah.
On the Sunday.
Well, he said Sunday or
Saturday.
Monday.
He said the Saturday.
Well, did he not say?
The Sunday?
No, he did,
Sunday,
because he
Sunday.
said in the aftermath of the Sunday World.
Of the Sunday World, yeah. So he said it was.
Well, he said he believed it was Monday. Initially, I think he said the Gardaí thought it was...
I'm the one with the notes here. I can't read them. I mean, that's so ridiculous.
I do. Well, he
initially
right. said...
He said it was the Monday.
Yeah, he initially said Sunday, but then he said, no, I think it was Monday morning.
And this is a really key piece of evidence. It's actually one of the two really key pieces of evidence that Dowdall gave against Gerry Hutch. And he said that during that meeting in that Whitehall Park, that Gerry Hutch confessed and said he shot David Byrne, and was up the walls over this picture that had been published in the Sunday World, which showed Flatcap and a man in drag running with guns from the hotel. But the evidence that Sarah Sked gave was that the records gave no clear opportunity for Dowdall to have met Hutch on the dates he said he confessed. Now, what she did say was it possibly happened the previous day.
Yeah, so, I mean, So I suppose you've spoken about circumstantial evidence. Like, there is direct evidence from Jonathan Dowdall, it has to be said. Jonathan Dowdall was a witness. He came into court. He defended his witness statement. So there is that direct evidence. And when you drill down into it, as you are talking about this meeting, we have a man standing in court saying, this is what happened. We have the defence throwing shade on it, to say the least, suggesting or claiming that it didn't happen. So a lot of it goes to, some of it at least, and is Jonathan Dowdall a credible witness? Is he a believable witness? Witnesses make mistakes all the time. If you have a witness that comes into court and can tell you, I met him at 15:22 and we talked for 2 minutes, and have all of that exact things that may not be true. So witnesses do get things wrong, don't remember days, they have no reason to take notes and know exact stuff. So Jonathan Dowdall may have misremembered. That doesn't mean he was a lying witness, but is he a credible witness? Is he believable? You spoke about it being in the Special Criminal Court. I think if it was before a jury, a jury would listen to Jonathan Dowdall, look at Jonathan Dowdall and think, no way am I convicting somebody on the basis of what this guy is spouting on. However, the judges may look and go, look, I've been sat through hundreds of court cases, and I know witnesses don't remember things perfectly, and that doesn't mean
witnesses can make bad witnesses. I mean, they can be really bad.
Yeah, but judges will know, I think, that people don't remember times and dates 3 years, 4 years on, and they might think, well, that's actually not something that would lead me to rule him out, because he made a mess of that whole meeting.
Oh, he made a mess
as a witness, like
he did,
sitting there listening to it, like
and talking about that he had seen the picture, and he said he knew who was in the picture.
Yeah, he said
he named Patrick Hutch as being the guy in drag, and then of course it was put to him that you couldn't have seen that picture because the picture was pixelated, which we knew it was. Pixelated, for anyone who doesn't know, means the faces had been blurred to the extent that nobody could recognise who was in it. He fudged a lot of that. His second key piece of evidence, of course, was that he and his father had booked, in this very complicated fashion, a room in the Regency Hotel. They had been north the day before the Regency. They drove back down to Dublin and they went and collected that key card, paid for the room with cash. The father went up, came back down, came out to the car. The car was parked kind of in a position away from the CCTV out in the car park. And Jonathan Dowdall claimed that they went from there with the key card and drove to a peculiar location on a road where it was put to him. There was other places that he could have done this. And he handed over, he said, the key card to Gerry Hutch, who came out of the shadows to take it from him. That was the second key piece of evidence. But you know what I think that we all forget sometimes when we talk about this case, because Jonathan Dowdall is the big spectre, isn't he, in it?
He is.
We forget the fact that Jonathan Dowdall was also due to be charged with murder. And at that point, the only evidence the state had was everything except his evidence. So in other words, they had the tapes and they had every other piece of evidence. The DPP still directed a murder charge at that stage. And had Jonathan Dowdall not wobbled, not looked to go on witness protection, not agreed to go state witness, both of them would have gone to trial on the other evidence.
Yeah.
And is that other evidence enough? Even if you take that Jonathan Dowdall was, as described by Brendan Grehan, the defence counsel, he said the whole case, he said, stands or falls on a proven liar.
Well, so, I mean, to describe how these things work, which many people know, but, you know, to go over it anyway, the DPP, the Director of Public Prosecutions, they get a file from the Gardaí, and that file, the guards may recommend a murder charge or whatever, but the DPP will assess it and they'll say, there's no way there's enough evidence to bring a murder charge in this case. Nothing is happening. Or else they'll say, yes, there is enough to have a reasonable expectation that we could get a conviction. So Gerry Hutch was charged with murder without Jonathan Dowdall's being part of that file sent to the DPP, without Jonathan Dowdall's witness statement. So the DPP, who can be conservative with bringing charges against people, you always hear people saying, why wasn't this person charged? They felt there was enough without Jonathan Dowdall. So that would be a contradiction maybe of Gerry Hutch's defence, who said it stands or falls on Jonathan Dowdall. That would be a suggestion that it doesn't stand or fall on Jonathan Dowdall, that there is enough. Mm-hmm. But you sit through a trial and you have to then, we are only giving an opinion, arguably uneducated opinion.
Oh, like completely.
Yeah.
There's no arguably about it.
Well. No, I was kind of sort of speaking for myself there, but since you've jumped on the uneducated train. But I mean, it's so, like, you know, there is stuff there.
So outside of Dowdall, let's just say that the three judges, Sarah Berkeley, Tara Burns and Gráinne Malone, sat down and went, this guy's a fool. Can't believe anything he says. Let's park him, right? And they just took all that and they went, right, we're not accepting any of that.
Yeah.
So what do they have? They have 10 hours of conversations between Hutch and Dowdall in a car, which was ruled to have been it was unlawfully gathered or something, but they put it in.
Yeah, it was unlawful. It was unlawful. It's a complicated thing. It was.
We always think it was complicated when we don't totally understand it. Let me just check my notes.
Well, I mean, the broad thing is
what happened was that the tracking device was not placed on the car in accordance with the law. Oh, sorry, that's a separate thing. The records were destroyed. Do you remember all that? Do you remember the records were destroyed and then they weren't destroyed and then... Yeah, but anyway, sorry, by November of this trial, the trial judges said they would listen to the audio despite the Jeep being outside the state for the majority of the recordings. There was something like 8 hours of the 10 and a half that were taken outside the state. And I think the ruling was something along the lines of that probably shouldn't have happened, but we're going to hear it and we're going to...
it was an inadvertent kind of... It wasn't set up to do it illegally. It happened obviously because the car went north, and that it's because it's a murder charge that they have to assess whether a breach of of the law in terms of the gathering of the evidence is sufficient.
Well, it was gathered unlawfully, but they listened to it anyway. It was really the...
Yes.
I mean, that is it in a nutshell.
Yeah, and because it's such a serious charge that
yeah, and
that
it was in the interest of the trial.
Yeah.
For it to be listened to. So that decision was made. And I think there was a comment made at the time that sort of anyway, the recordings alone
would not be enough to
would
convict
not be
him.
enough
He
to
wouldn't be
convict him.
convicted solely on the basis of the recordings.
So if I've said that we're getting rid of Dowdall's evidence,
Well,
now this is my hypothetical, and they have said that isn't enough.
Well, is Jonathan Dowdall's evidence totally untrue? I don't think you could say that it's totally untrue.
No. I mean, this is just...
So what I mean is, like, you know, are they going to rely on convict him on the basis that Gerry Hutch told him this? That doesn't... So they may say, well, that's not enough. But they may say, however, the other bit of evidence that Jonathan Dowdall gave that at least there is some ability to independently verify was the fact that he said he handed over the key card to the room used in the Regency to Gerry Hutch. Now, we know that Jonathan Dowdall collected that key card with his father, and we know that key card ultimately ended up in the hands of Kevin Murray, Flatcap, who used it as part of the Regency attack. So that is another bit of, to a degree, verification. It's not
verification he gave it to Hutch, is it?
Well, I mean, it's true. It's not verified beyond all doubt.
He could have given it to anybody. He could have given it to Flatcap.
Well, I think they know Flatcap's movements largely at that time. So we know it was handed over by John.
The cat.
No, but it's verification. Well, it's verification that Jonathan Dowdall, at least in part,
was part of the chain of that key card.
Yes, and he is giving evidence regarding that.
Well, he pleaded guilty, I suppose, to his role because of that. He pleaded guilty and he's serving a sentence.
Yes.
In relation to his role in the Regency, which was to do with that key card.
And we're also hearing...
But I don't know whether there was any verified evidence that he gave it to Hutch.
No, it's not.
His father was actually in the car with him, and he even suggested in the court case, why don't they go and get my father in here into the court? Father Patrick, who's in jail with him. Get him in here, he'll tell you. But nobody seemed to ever get him in. No.
Well, I suppose what it does show is, right, and you're right, they don't have a picture of Gerry Hutch, CCTV of Gerry Hutch collecting the card off Jonathan Dowdall, which would be very damning evidence. They don't have that. But it does show that Jonathan Dowdall at least has some knowledge of the conspiracy. The other evidence given was from the guard about the Hutch organised crime group.
Yeah.
You know, he's saying clearly, and I don't think that's really disputed, that this murder was carried out by the Hutch organised crime group, of which Gerry Hutch is a member at the very least, according to the Gardaí. So that's also a part of the chain of evidence.
I think the kind of probably the most important maybe is, well, obviously there's those recordings and what you believe is being said in them.
Well, I mean, we can hear what is being said. It's the implications of
it and what jokes are, and we had all this. But also the... Gardaí had them under surveillance when Gerry Hutch and Jonathan Dowdall went to meet with the IRA man, Shane Rowan, who's later found with the weapons. I mean, he was arrested. That's a fact. He was arrested with those AK-47s. An hour after he had moved around an industrial estate and where Patsy Hutch, Gerard Hutch's brother, was moving around as well in a car and got into a car with Rowan, and an hour later Rowan's caught with the AK-47s.
Which are used in the Regency, and it's the state's case that Gerry Hutch has control of these weapons. These are the murder weapons that are used, that are recovered, and it is the state's case that Gerry Hutch is the one controlling, like he's in charge. That's what they have said. So that's also circumstantial evidence. We know that David Byrne was shot with these weapons, and we know that Gerry Hutch is controlling them, and therefore that's a circumstantial case, or the state say he's controlling them.
And that's key evidence that will be considered, and all those movements and those trips to the north. And, you know, if you take out what Dowdall has said, and even as regards the tapes, like, I mean, they did travel to the north and they were captured with the guy who was caught with those weapons. So there's some connection. Now, this was in the aftermath, obviously. This was in the March 9th, I think, was when those weapons were seized. But the day, actually, the Liam Byrne house in Raleigh Square was raided by the Criminal Assets Bureau. But, those things that you can actually physically see Gerry Hutch on the CCTV, he is there.
Yeah.
He's not there in that industrial estate. I thought that was really significant, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, Patsy Hutch has been named a number of times in this trial by Dowdall.
Yeah.
Very heavily implicated as having had a role in the Regency Hotel.
Which he's never been obviously charged with.
But in evidence in the court, he's heavily implicated as having a role in this. And, given where he's at with Rowan in the very short period of time before the AKs, I remember watching that at the time, the day it was coming in the court, and thinking, now, if that was the guy in the dock that they had in that industrial estate moving around with the guy who's founded the weapons, I don't know, that for me would have been a much stronger case, but it was the wrong brother.
Exactly. And even if we talk about mobile phone traffic and stuff like that, nobody has ever said Gerry was on this phone. And he's obviously fiddles with a phone you can hear him in the tapes, but they never
He has a phone in the tapes, but that again is after. I mean, again, what I thought was significant, and I'm not a judge, but that they didn't even
have that
they don't
number,
seem to the investigating officers don't even seem to have him in the country.
No, for sure.
No. They don't have him in the country around the time. They've no evidence that he's in the country around the time of the Regency attack.
No, so it's kind of a broader...
he's back when his brother Eddie gets murdered.
Yes, and he's obviously...
3 days later, he's in the country then.
Yeah.
But they certainly didn't present any evidence whatsoever that he was in the country on the 5th of February 2016.
So it's a kind of a complicated case what they're left with, but I think it could be broadly summarised as Gerry Hutch is the leader of the Hutch organised crime group, according to the evidence given, that he has control of these weapons, that the murder weapon is something that he has control of, and that he's placed there by the witness Jonathan Dowdall, and that he's obviously involved in speaking to the IRA about the feud, so he's clearly has knowledge and a degree of authority there. So that's the case. Personally, I don't know if...
You're going to sit in the fence with me?
No, I'm not sitting in the fence. I don't think, from my perspective, that
there's enough evidence to convict.
It sounds much more like there's conspiracy charges that have been brought before the Special Criminal Court regarding gangland murders, where people are not convicted of murder, convicted of conspiracy, movement of cars,
or
movement of weapons,
directing an organised crime group.
Yeah, so those charges aren't laid.
Yeah.
So he's charged with murder. Personally, I don't think it adds up. But what would I know?
Interesting though, the verdict is going to give obviously so much clarity to Hutch as regards where he's going to spend, or whether or not he's going to be actually able to properly celebrate his birthday on the outside. But what is going to be very significant and maybe missed on the day, so it's probably good to just raise it now and we can talk about it again, is Dowdall. Is he on the witness protection program now? Because when he gave evidence, it was clearly evidence was clearly given in front of him in the courtroom that his status hadn't as then been approved, and that he was still being sort of looked at for suitability on it. I think that if his evidence is accepted by the judges of the Special Criminal Court, and they will detail that in their verdict, whether they accept him, what they accept that he had to say, what they don't accept. They're probably not going to do what I just suggested and just throw it all out.
Yeah.
But so if his evidence is by and large accepted, he is likely going to be asked to give evidence again. And if other people are charged in relation to this, I think this whole verdict on Monday is going to sort of lay out a path going forward probably for others apart from Gerry Hutch. If this case doesn't work for the state, if he is acquitted of murder and he walks, is anybody going to have the appetite to go for anybody else in this? Is Dowdall going to be called to give evidence again? or does he just get relocated as soon as he's finished?
Well, I think
sentence?
that you can see clearly that the Gardaí are continuing to very vigorously pursue what they call the Hutch organised crime group. There is Jonathan Dowdall could become a witness. Certainly, if he has things he can verify or comment on, if the state have evidence and they need somebody to comment on it, they have it there. But as this Regency trial has gone through the courts and attracted so much attention, there does seem to be another investigation going on in relation to former members of the Gardaí and the Hutch organised crime group. Gerry Hutch, of course, has been arrested while he is awaiting trial.
Very unusual, that.
Very unusual. And so that other investigation, which we don't know exactly what's going on, but it does seem to be a broader investigation into the operation of the Hutch organised crime group, and involving, certainly we have one former Garda officer, John Spud Murphy, who's currently serving a lengthy prison sentence for possession of a large quantity of cannabis. So he is being, he's still being arrested and questioned about this. So this is all going to go on,
and of
no
course,
matter what the verdict.
People in our business and in other sort of areas that are, I suppose, working alongside organised crime would suggest that the reason for that is because if Gerry Hutch does walk, he's going to be arrested on the steps of the courtroom as he tries to walk free. That's what the speculation is. Now, that's typical maybe of you journalists, that the story isn't dramatic enough. They want to make it more. But, he certainly is being pursued on these matters. And there is a possibility, if he did walk, that he would be arrested and questioned about other and possibly charged very quickly again.
It's a possibility. Absolutely is a possibility. And there's certainly an investigation going on.
I'm sure he knows that himself.
He does, and look, that's a very interesting what is there and what is not there. Who knows? But certainly, the investigation into the Hutch organised crime group is progressing onwards with full steam, and there are obviously certain members of that crime group that have not faced any charges since the Regency, and whether that will always be the case, I wouldn't be confident to say again. I'll sit in defence, but. It's not. If Gerry walks free, that's not the end of that broader investigation.
Mm-hmm. It's going to be crazy.
Yeah, it's going to be.
It's going to be crazy. It's going to be. I mean, it's probably going to be like that day. Do you remember the day when Jonathan Dowdall?
Yeah. I mean, there's two other guys on trial as well that we don't think of. There is the courts. There's. The Byrne family, David Byrne's family, are in there every day, were in there every day while it was ongoing. So that's going to be a very...
Jason Bonney, of course, is facing charges in relation to the getaway vehicles, as is Paul Murphy, his co-accused. And the two of them have sat throughout the trial beside Gerry Hutch. The crowds I was referring to when I said to you it was going to be crazy, like the day that Jonathan Dowdall finally stepped into the witness box, there was queues out the door around, everybody hoping to get a seat. Lots of people didn't. There was an overflow court facilitated. Journalists were allowed in because I suppose we're seen as the eyes and ears of many. Yeah. We're not there just to sort of satisfy our own curiosity.
No, not solely anyway.
It'll be the same. The same will happen for the day of the verdict. But my phone hasn't stopped about people looking to know what do I think they should go? Yeah. What time do they need to be in at? The courts are going to be surrounded again with members of the specialist units armed in case anything should happen. And probably even heavier than ever before because the possibility that Hutch won't be in custody after it if he is.
Yeah, though even if he is found not guilty, I would imagine he'd be brought back to prison and allowed to pack his stuff up before he's released rather than...
No, I think Patrick Hutch walked out the door and was collected in the back of a motorbike.
He might have done, but he was... Yeah, well, look...
It's not like you're in a hotel.
No, but
you're not going to be brought back
to
collect your gear. You bring it with you.
They often do, though. They often bring them back.
And release them from prison?
Yeah, release them from prison and give them their whatever they had in their pockets at the time and all that
I
stuff.
never heard of that.
Yeah, they do
That's
sometimes now. But I mean, it's obviously Jerry Conlon.
That's on the movies now.
No, I think it's Jerry Conlon. I'm going out the front door.
Yeah.
Is from the movies.
Oh, is it right? Well, no, I've seen them go out the front door.
Well, no, you could be
you're
right.
Free to walk.
You could be one fall out over this.
No, we
little
definitely
detail.
won't. We definitely won't. And of course, yeah. Look, I suppose we will. We're going to have a really busy week with this because whatever happens, it's not over.
No, it's not over. And I mean, there will be.
It'll be what happens after what happens, and you know, where everyone goes and what they do, and
it is, and you know, the investigation into the two crime gangs that fought this feud, the Hutch organised crime gang and the Kinahan organised crime gang, is going to keep going. The Gardaí have been really, really up their game and have been relentless in their pursuit. So we'll see.
And I wanted to say to you that we are going to have a very busy couple of weeks ahead because we've the verdict on Monday.
Yeah.
On the 27th of April, we're in the Olympia Theatre with Omerta, the show which is obviously focused on the idea of betrayal in the criminal underworld and heavily centres on Jonathan Dowdall's betrayal of Gerry Hutch. And on Sunday, the 30th of April, we're in the INEC in Killarney. Wednesday, the 3rd of May, in Dolan's of Limerick. And then, which is quite sorry, I've given you the... Oh, no, I haven't. That's right, yeah, May. On Wednesday, the 17th of May, I'm sending people in the wrong dates, be typical me. We're in Belfast in the Limelight, which is a really cool venue. Thursday, the 18th, in Cork's Cypress Avenue, which is another cool venue. And finally, Friday the 19th, we're in Monroe's in Galway, which I better also say is a really cool venue.
Great.
So yeah, it'll be good. And hoping to meet some people who tune in for this warbling every now and then.
Yes.
So look, I will see you on Monday. Early.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you'll have to be suited and booted. We'll have to, it's going to be...
We're going to be back to the car, are we? Or will we make it back to the studio? I don't know.
I don't know. It'll be 100. Will it be 180-page verdict as well?
Stop!
It won't be a guilty or not guilty.
I know.
It'll be a long one to digest.
It's going to be really long.
Yeah, especially for somebody with the attention
span of a gnat. Yeah. And there's also, he's referring to himself. Yeah. There's also the fact that there'll be all the, will the Byrne family wish to make a victim impact statement?
Did. I mean, if that's, depending on the verdict. And of course, when Patrick Hutch Jr. was found not guilty before, they spoken to the steps and ultimately ended up outside of the Dáil, as far as I remember.
Yeah.
So there will be...
You're going up to the Dáil.
There'll be a reaction either way.
Is that... That's
absolutely.
Okay, right. Okay, I'll see you on Monday.
Thanks, Nicola.